The PMC, Pennsylvania Military College, was established in 1821 to prepare young men for the entry of college. The PMC was the first school to receive federal arms for training, and the cadets became well known for their leadership, scholarship, and military service to their country. The Communications Department is honored to present Voices from Freedom, where alumni from the Pennsylvania Military College have the chance to reflect on some of their favorite memories during this pivotal point in their lifetime.
Welcome to Voices from Freedom. Hello everyone, I'm Danielle Cardona, and today I have the men of the PMC class of 1967 with us, and I'm very excited to be sitting here with them. We will be discussing some of their experiences during their PMC experience here, and with me I have Andy Fraser, John Daniels, Jim Reiser, and Art Alec. So basically what I'm going to have you guys do is just go down the line, basically just introduce yourself, your cadet number, and just tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Andy Fraser. My cadet number is 256. I doubt that I'm the only 256 in history. I was a member of the PMC band, also known as Headquarters Company, during our days.
Hi, I'm John Daniels. Also class of 67, cadet number 170, and I spent most of my life after PMC as a professional musician and conductor, and then in later years got involved in retail management, and retired about 3 months ago.
Yeah, good for you, John. My turn? I'm Jim Reiser. My cadet number was 844. Upon graduation from PMC, I went right into the Army and ended up staying 27 years in the Army. I live now in Westchester, PA, not far from campus, and have 2 children and a boatload of grandchildren, thankfully.
Awesome.
Boatload. That's a lot.
A boatload is a lot.
My name is Art Alec. My cadet number was 459. They made it easy for me. The first 2 digits stayed up to the 3rd digit because they had to. And I spent time being an infantry officer after I graduated, and lived for most of the time right across the bridge in southern New Jersey with my wife Brenda, and retired about 6.5 years ago and live in a place that all of us down there called Disney World for retirees, and it's called The Villages in Florida.
That's awesome. So I'm really happy to hear kind of where you guys are at now, but I do want to take it back a little bit and just kind of hear, what brought you to the PMC, and like what was the support like from your families when you made that decision? I'm going to start with you again.
Okay, why not? My uncle, Wes Smith, was a 1943 graduate of PMC, and I guess all of my life he sort of molded me to come here. I didn't know that until I was a senior in high school, and they sort of allowed me to look around at other colleges, but I ultimately came here through his influence.
That's awesome.
Well, I learned of PMC through a cousin, Don Kurlick, who was in the class of 1964 here. Quite a distinguished cadet. He was a captain his senior year while I was a lowly rook, and kind of looked in on me once in a while, but I don't think he ever threw me any special favors. And so that was why I came to PMC, and selected PMC from among other schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I went to not a really good high school when I was growing up in Maryland. And I actually asked my parents to send me to a military school down in the Shenandoah Valley. And while I was down there, that was for my last 2 years of high school. While I was down at that military school, I made friends with a fellow by the name of Kevin Kissling, who told me that he was going to Pennsylvania Military College, and shared info and pamphlets with me. I talked to my parents about it, and they were thrilled and said, yeah, you know, PMC sounds like the place, and that's obviously where I ended up.
All of these stories about people that you knew and how you got here. Let me tell you how I got here. I had already applied to a number of colleges, and I'd been accepted. And in one case, we'd already sent in a deposit. In the second half of my senior year of high school, I had a really bad case of senioritis. And I brought home the third quarter report card. Remember report cards? And it was terrible. And that day, a catalog from Pennsylvania Military College had arrived in the mailbox, and my father got it and was perusing it. And he saw my third quarter grades, and he said, I got a good mind to send you here. I started looking at it. I said, let's go take a look at it. I think that's where I want to go. And that's how I ended up here, mostly by accident. Never regretted a second, by the way.
Good.
I would have flunked out of everywhere.
Well, it sounded like you had a lot of family support, but kind of going off of your story, do you guys recall receiving any demerits or walking tours during the PMC?
I think that was Art's specialty.
No, you know, I kind of avoided that pretty much, but I was talking to one of our classmates who unfortunately is not going to be with us this weekend. His name was Bob McGinney, and he was my freshman roommate. And I was relating a story to him. You know, we used to have sometimes those big Saturday inspections, those white glove inspections. And it was a junior, and I guess he was the Corps Sergeant Major, and his name was McLaughlin. And he was a real tough guy. And Bob and I had spent, I don't even know how much time. We hand waxed the floor in our dorm room. We did all kinds of things. And remember how we had to have our laundry folded, and up above it had these sliding things. And we actually went in there with wet rags and cleaned that out. And the Corps Sergeant Major climbed up that little step ladder so y'all could get to the upper bunk. I never had to worry about that. And he climbed up there and went scooting in there and came out, and he looked at his white glove, and there wasn't a thing on it. And he had one word: merits. So merits was the opposite of demerits, so that was like a good thing. So that's
nice. How about you? Anything?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Do you recall, receiving any demerits or
No,
walking tours?
I honestly, I can't imagine that I didn't.
This is a good group, really. You don't
But I
have any
really
trouble with
don't.
us.
I really don't remember getting any. And that may have been as a result of having spent time at that military academy and being a little bit aware of what was going to be coming my way.
You were a great cadet, as I remember. You were a really good cadet.
I told you I don't have the money with me now. I'll have to pay you later.
You pay me later.
You? Anything?
Well, we had a name for walking tours back then. We called it Pounding the Blacktop. And the Blacktop was right behind Old Main, between Old Main and the old stadium. And in my 4-year career, I had one 1-hour tour. And I learned early on to basically blend into the woodwork. And my older cousin kind of cued me in even before I started school. He said, learn early to do that. And I was pretty good at it. And I think my one tour had to do with a Saturday morning white glove inspection. And we had a really, really clean room, and the guy couldn't find anything wrong. And then he reached up under and put his hand up under the heating unit along the floor, and it came out dirty, because we didn't clean out the veins in the radiator.
Sorry to have brought up a bad memory.
Yeah, well, so no, one tour was not, I
It was good.
It was not bad.
Yeah.
Nothing?
No, I'm a goody-goody, really.
He was. Still is.
Now, for our viewers, that are watching that may not know what a walking tour is, would one of you be able to just kind of briefly describe exactly what that experience is
Well,
like?
he's the one that walked it.
Well, you were under dress delta, which was the dress uniform we wore in the town. That's kind of the famous one everybody sees with West Point cadets. And with cross belts, with the belts on, with the M1 rifle and white gloves. And you would march the distance of the blacktop, and you would do an about face, change shoulders or whatever, and march to the other end and do the same thing, and you do it for an hour. That was one tour.
Gotcha. So, since you guys, like you said, you're a great group, so let's talk about more of the positive experience that you've had. Is there any specific event or something that happened during your experience that was very memorable for you?
I would say every parade was very memorable for all of us, because that was when we got a chance to get up on a stage, so to speak, and show what we could do. And so I really enjoyed parades most, and I also enjoyed after the parade. Usually you had a chance to socialize with a girlfriend or meet a new young lady in the neighborhood.
Meeting
So,
your girlfriend, is that
meet-
what you're saying?
well, conservatively speaking. But I would say parade days were the highlight of my time here.
Well, I actually did have one event, and there was a later question I noticed on the list about something that defined your life, and it was the same event. And when we were rooks, early in our rook year, President Kennedy was assassinated. And PMC was one of the few schools in the country that didn't get sent home early for Thanksgiving vacation. We had to stay. The Corps requested that we go down, since we were here anyway, and march in his funeral parade in Washington, and that was denied. So we finally had what's called a hollow square ceremony, and that's what the military does when someone dies. And we had our own parade out on the parade grounds. But the day that he was assassinated, I can remember every single thing that happened to me that day. And I can also remember in the week or two that we were still here, what happened here. And we were billeted on the first quarter of Howell Hall, and there's a reception room in the middle of that, which was strictly off limits to rooks. And now I don't know, you guys may remember this, but I don't know if it was just our company, headquarters company, or the entire Corps. But the upperclassmen of headquarters company got together, since that was one of our corridors, and because the Kennedy assassination and the aftermath was one of the first big TV news events ever on televised news. And there was a black and white TV in the reception room. And the upperclassmen of the band got together and said, we're going to allow the rooks to go in there. They need to be part of this, and go in there anytime they want and watch what's going on TV. And I remember actually being in front of that TV and seeing on live TV, seeing Oswald shot by Jack Ruby, and the whole thing. Now, the reason this was such a effect in my life was that it showed the brotherhood of these tough upperclassmen, that they had the humanity, in spite of how tough they were, to care about us, about the Rooks, and want us to be in on that. And that's, to me, where our brotherhood in the Corps started, was with that event.
Any other memories for you that really stand out?
Yeah, I'd have to say, like others, I really did enjoy the parades. You know, it's kind of a chance to, to strut your stuff in front of friends and family. And I also have fond memories of when we did our Atlantic City trips to the games that were played, football games that were played up there. I guess one of my biggest memories was Mother's Day parades. Having your family come and see you was always a lot of fun and a thrill. So, and graduation day was a big memory, a great memory. And I had wanted to, at that point I had decided to make the Army a career, and I was commissioned that day, so that was the start of it.
Day before, right?
Day before, is that what it was? My memory here. That's why he's here.
Gotcha.
I got
Makes
it.
sense.
I was telling these guys that I was talking to my freshman year roommate on the phone, and I told him what his cadet number was, and I could remember the cadet numbers of just about everybody that was in my freshman Rook company, which was just ridiculous. Now, don't ask me what I had for breakfast, but I can remember stuff from 50 years ago, or more than that now, right?
Yeah.
Freshman year. And I've told Andy this on the phone probably several times. I think that one of the best things, along with really everything else that I look at retrospectively about my time here, was that during that period of time, Headquarters Company, which was the band, was probably at the top of their performing capabilities. And they were in the Mardi Gras parade, and they were at the World's Fair thing, and they performed at halftime at the Eagles. I mean, they were really, really good. And long before I started talking to Andy, and before he put some of the band things on Facebook, I'd already listened to most of them, and I still get chills to this day when I hear some of those songs that you guys did. I mean, it was just so inspiring. And Jim will say this too, because he alluded to the parades. It gave you such a sense of pride, of belonging to something that was very, very special a long time ago, and to us, still very special today, because we can remember it.
Definitely still very special. I know Widener specifically does like to still incorporate the PMC and the museum with our current students. But Art, I'm going to start with you. You know, you talked about keeping in touch. Now, you've spent 4 years with a lot of these men. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of them, and how? How do you maintain that relationship?
Well, it's very difficult to respond to the how, because the answer is no.
Okay.
But when one of our really good classmates, Dick Hodges, who will not be here because of health reasons, and Andy and several others, Art Liss, were you one of those? In the group of five?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought so.
The Gang of Five.
The
Gang of Five.
They started
swept
sending out.
in,
Yeah,
yes.
they started sending out information about this reunion, and I remember somebody had said something back, and it said, well, you know, why would I want to do that? Because it's Widener now, and it's a whole lot different than what we remember. And I responded, and I said, it's not about what it is, it's about what it was.
Yeah.
And one of our classmates, Bob Durkin, responded out of nowhere, and he said, I felt the same way, but Art's right. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And so the answer to your specific question is, haven't really kept in touch, but I'm glad I'm still alive to be able to be here and meet up with all of these guys from way back when. And I can remember everybody as they were, as the pictures in the yearbook are. Norm Gornell, I mean, I can remember. It's just crazy.
He'll be here.
He's here, I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have known him if I stepped over, tripped on him, but saving the y'all. But it's just, you know, but the answer to the specific question is, you know, it's not totally no, because I was in a Rotary Club over in New Jersey that I had joined, and John Lindsay was in that club, and so
Wow.
he and his wife and my wife and I palled around and, you know, went to dinner and whatever. But he's really the only
He'll be here.
I
He's
know,
coming.
I saw that.
Jim, how about you? You keep in touch with a lot of people? a
Yeah,
few?
I wish it was easier and we weren't quite so spread out, but I do. And you know, I'd have to say that it's you know, mostly with the guys that were in Q5 with me or in Theta Chi, but there are others as well. And from time to time, I know that you know, a group of us in the summers will go someplace with our wives for a weekend.
That's cool.
And you know, that gets coordinated well in advance. And just tonight, we'll be meeting up with a big crew at Latham Hall that you know, we've coordinated. So, yeah, it's you know, you make lifelong. I think everybody that came to school here made lifelong friends. I'd be surprised and would be sad if that was not the case.
John, I know we talked about this a little bit before we started, but is there any stories that you want to share about relationships that you've been able to maintain?
Well, I have been in touch with quite a few people. I live in Southern California now, but I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania. So Facebook, for me, has been a tool not only with my PMC friends, but my high school classmates. And frankly, I dislike Facebook, but I remain on Facebook just to not lose touch anymore, you know, with my PMC and my high school friends. And then some years ago, Andy created a headquarters company website, which then led to 2 headquarters company reunions during various homecomings, some really great gatherings. And just today, I'm going to get emotional here maybe, I saw for the first time in 45 years, just before I walked in here, Doug Burnett from the band. And we were all such dear friends, and we named our son after Doug. And then Doug just kind of dropped out of sight for many years, you know, and it's so good to see some of these old friends again.
I use this before. You really need it.
Well, among brothers, you can share a hanky.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Thank you, Andy. You bailed me out for earlier. Just
Fond
now.
memories.
Fond memories. Oh, there's so
Maintaining relationships.
My goodness, there's so many memories. Maintaining relationships. So, as John says, in recent years, the PMC band has kept in pretty close touch for the most part. But I guess the establishment of the Facebook group, PMC Facebook group, by people like Bill Spear, Vincent Bellino, Ron Romanowitz, and I don't think I left any leaders out, did I? But that's really given us a chance to have a reunion every day if we want to, or just to take 10 minutes out during the day to have a reunion.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice. We post old photos We post new photos, we post movies, we post music. So really, in a sense, homecoming is sort of redundant when you talk about reunions these days. And so that's the thing I think we're celebrating most these days.
Well, I told you this on the phone. You know, Headquarters Company was kind of unique in that you guys were together all 4 years.
All 4 years, that's right.
Where the rest of us, you know, we're in A company, and then the next year you're in D company and F company and whatever. And so there was always that special bond. But I'll tell you a real quick story. I do have one quick story. PMC, because of how it is, and it's, you know, we all talking about our class, you know, 67 today, because that's what this is all about. But I was going through the Army Ranger School. And in the first phase of the Ranger School, you'll remember this.
I do.
They put us on some hellacious physical exercise things, and one of them was a run, and you ran with your rifle, and you had a full backpack, and you know, and
The Derby Queen.
yeah, and this one was actually fairly early on at the phase at Fort Benning, and God help you if you dropped out of a run. And so they started calling off the names of Ranger candidates, for lack of a better word, that had dropped out, and they called my name. And I said, I didn't drop out. Well, God forbid if you ever lied to them, then you're really in trouble. But an Army captain named Dave Alter, who graduated when we were freshmen, said, he didn't drop out. I'll vouch for him. And he was a class of 64. 64. Because he had remembered me from being a rook, a freshman cadet.
Yeah.
And he vouched for me. And so the Band of Brothers is not just the 101st Airborne from World War II. We got a Band of Brothers here too, because we always, the upperclassmen kind of look down their nose at the rooks, the freshmen, but then when we weren't freshmen anymore, you're all brothers, right?
Members of the club.
Members of the club. Good club too.
Yep.
Now, Andy, I'm going to start with you this time. So we've talked about, your peers and keeping in touch with them. Do you have any memories of maybe a way a faculty or staff member really changed your experience at the PMC?
Oh boy, we could go on and on with that. We could talk about the professor that put us to sleep most frequently,
Yeah, we know who that is.
or we could talk about the professor who we learned the most from.
Just pick
Which
your
one would you
favorite
like
Your
me to
favorite
speak
one.
about?
Your
My
favorite one that
favorite
you would like to
professor
talk
was
about.
Carl Wisniewski, who was the director of music at PMC since 1955, actually. And Carl passed away just this past June, and we miss him. We get emotional when we think about him. We're celebrating his memory, as a matter of fact, at this homecoming. We have an exhibit at the museum. Carl's wife and 2 sons will be here tomorrow to join us. And if I say any more, I think I'm going to get a little emotional.
You
So
said enough.
Absolutely.
That was good.
I'll let John pick up there.
Well, I'm going to have to say there were 2, but I do need to say a few things about Carl Wisniewski. My junior year, I was the brigade drum sergeant, but as a junior private. And in my senior year, as a lieutenant, I was the drum major. And then my senior year, the drum major was also the student conductor of the band when it was in concert. And Carl Wisniewski, through his total lack of ego and his total generosity to me, began my conducting career. he let me conduct any time I wanted to when the band was in concert, and was always positive with me, and that's what set me off. And thank you, Carl.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tough one for me, but I always kind of got a kick out of Doc Nearing.
That was my second one.
Oh, God.
He was such a character. You never knew what was going to happen in the classroom, but I always kind of came away with a smile on my face after some of his antics. So that's a big one.
Just to interject, Dr. Homer Nearing was the author of the PMC alma mater.
There you go.
The lyrics, I guess, is that correct? Not the music, but the lyrics. So he's a pretty famous guy in PMC history.
He was a big curmudgeon of a man.
He was.
He was such a curmudgeon. We all thought he was really older than he was, he was just hell on wheels sometimes. But I'll never forget. You know, I was an English major. Our last class with him, he teared up, and he told us how happy he was to be our professor and sent us out in the world. You know, he was a great guy.
I don't know if you guys will remember this, but when Kirkbride Hall first opened, we had classes there. And one day, it was kind of a winter day, and Doc Nearing comes up and gets in, and he has his overcoat on, and he takes it and he throws it, and he throws his hat, and he knocks the podium off the desk, and he says, "For God's sake, make me walk up all of these stairs." And I forget who it was. One of our classmates said, "Doc, there's an elevator." Why didn't they tell me that? That's how he was, right? But Andy, were you political science?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you told me.
Political science.
There was a professor here, and I think his name was Skolnick.
A.E. Skolnick.
Thank you.
Oh, good
He
for
wasn't
you.
here the whole time we were here, I don't think.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, you know,
Skurnick, excuse me.
Skurnick.
Skurnick.
Yes.
That's
I
Skolnick.
have something like that. I'll tell you why he's memorable. And you're a student, so you need to hear this. Because the world has changed a lot. And I remember sitting in his poli-sci class, and he was an immigrant, I think, from Russia. I think he was. Anyway, he said, "I want everybody here to be very careful about anything that any professor teaches you or that you read in any of your textbooks. Always question those things." And I remember that like it was yesterday. And that is very, very sage advice, especially today. I really believe that. What y'all think?
So how would you guys say that the military experience at the PMC formed you to be a leader today?
Leader today, we're all old. We can't be leaders. We got to be getting along one day at a time.
I would say PMC taught us a lot about organization. You know, you had an hour to do 100 different things. Study, clean the room, call your girlfriend, many different things. And you really had to learn time management. And I think that's a big takeaway for me.
Anyone else?
During my years as a conductor, as a teacher, an executive, I've chaired boards. I've always told people the most important thing I ever learned in my many years going to college happened the day the doors closed and our parents left us during the Rook period, and we had an excellent cadre in the band. Two sergeants, McCloy and Bill Phillips, two lieutenants, Vanderlyn and Mike Collins, and the first thing I heard, and it wasn't directly to me, but I processed it immediately, was one of the cadre guys was in some other guy's face, and the guy made an excuse. And he said, all I want to hear from you is, I have no excuse, sir. I made a mistake, and I will correct it, but I have no excuse. And I've told everybody who would listen to me that was the most important thing I learned in all my years of college. That means take responsibility for yourself and for your actions. And I don't think that's being taught anymore. But we learned it in a big way at PMC, and I embraced it.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of an addendum to what we just heard. But I think one of the best things I reaffirmed is probably the best way to put it while I was at PMC was to always treat everybody with dignity. You know, all of the people that were either in your company but were junior than you were, you know, they all deserve to be treated with dignity. And you know, yelling, and when I was in the I took that into the Army with me, and when I commanded companies and battalions, you know, I made sure that everybody that worked for me followed that same path. Because you can just really tear down people and units if that's not the case. I was around some yellers that were senior officers that embarrassed themselves and embarrassed the soldiers that worked for them. Never works.
I remember freshman and probably sophomore year, we had a member of the military staff, and his name was Captain Detley. And Captain Detley was a West Point graduate, had served a tour in Vietnam, was an Army Ranger, was airborne. And he started a Ranger platoon here so that we started learning Ranger tactics and doing some of those things, and you remember, Jim.
Yeah.
And
You used to bite the necks off of chickens, as I recall.
well, only if they were only if they were still alive. But he
did he floss with the beak?
You're going to be doing a
But-
tour out there, buddy.
Well, what we found out, and then later on, having been fortunate enough to go through the Army's Ranger School, was that the easy way is not necessarily the best way, and he knows. You know, you learn so many things, and it started with him, and in following his example and things that he taught us in the Ranger platoon, I knew what my direction was, and I love being an infantry officer. And even though I spent more than my share of time in Walter Reed Army Hospital as a result of all of that, I really wanted to make it a career, but they wanted to send me back as an advisor, and there was no way. Yeah, and so, you know, if they would have, I had a wife and a little son and a daughter on the way, and so to go back over there and be an advisor, you know, but the Captain Detley was a real hard guy, if you remember.
I never saw him smile.
Yeah, but when he was in, and that was in the classroom, but in that Ranger environment, he was like a different guy, because now he was teaching us what his element was, and I'll never forget that, you know. But one of the things you learn is the path of least resistance. The easy way very rarely is the right way.
Now, transitioning from your past experience to the present, I know not all of you, but most of you have been back to campus several times. So my question to you guys is, what traditions have you really seen yourself most excited for? And like I said, we do care about you guys. We like you when you come back. Are there any traditions you would like to see us bring to campus? Anyone can chime in here if you have anything on.
Any traditions we should bring to campus?
Anything that you really look forward to that already exists, or anything you'd like to start?
Well, personally, I've seen online somebody was bashing the broom drill, but I have to say, the broom drill, if I'm not mistaken, dates back 100 or more years. You don't get rid of a tradition that goes back 100 or more years. That has to stay in my mind. But
There were charming reasons why the brooms appeared.
because the rifles were all in use by soldiers fighting wars.
I'd like to go back and do the junior ring dance one more time.
Why, did you screw it up the first time?
No. As a matter of fact, I married the young lady that I
that's
took to
true,
the
you
junior
did.
ring dance. But I don't know if everybody knows about that tradition. The huge ring, the huge school ring, and the cadet and his date would be under the ring, and
Take a picture and you'd have that.
the cadet would untie the ring on a ribbon, I guess.
Right.
And the date would his date would put it on his finger. So it was a very moving experience for all of us when we got our rings.
Think about
That's
that.
wonderful.
Does that kind of thing happen
Didn't
these
do it.
days? I don't know.
I'm not too sure, I'll be honest.
I don't think I was dating anybody at the time.
The last question that I want to ask you guys is just if you could briefly just kind of talk about, I know you guys haven't had a chance to talk to the current ROTC cadets since you've come back to campus. I hope you get a chance to this weekend. I hope you get a chance to talk to them and about your experiences and their experiences, but I'm just curious, like, what piece of advice would you offer a current ROTC cadet, whether they plan to enter the military or just civilian life or anything in general?
That's
I know it's a really deep
That's
question.
a tough
but-
question.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
You're the career man. You ought to speak to that
Well,
first. Yes.
I guess the first thing I would say would be make your first priority your studies and doing the best you can academically, and don't short your academics for paying attention to whatever the ROTC program is, how much time you're spending with that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm sure that the military cadre here is doing a good job of getting these guys and gals ready to go into the service for those that are going to be doing that.
Well, I think the structure that you learn, whether it's when we were cadets at a military institution or through the ROTC, there's structure involved in military, and it comes out when you're studying military history and you find out what the great generals of the past had done and how they thought, okay? And that bleeds into your academic life here at Widener or wherever. And it bleeds into your social life, and it will bleed into your life going down the road. The military is a great way to learn do's and don'ts of everyday living, I think. We have it. I was going to ask everybody at the 50th reception that we're going to have, the brunch, if they remember what it said above the old auditorium in Old Main, what that saying was, but it's right out there. Can any of you remember?
No.
Brace.
Yeah.
Come on now. It's right out there. If they took it down, it's right out there.
Couldn't tell you.
If wealth is lost, nothing is lost. if health is lost, something is lost. If character is lost,
I was going to say integrity, but
all is
yeah,
lost.
okay.
Well, I was going to ask you, I didn't even have to wait until the reception to talk to you guys, to ask you guys about that, but I always remembered it,
Yeah.
you know? But it's that, for the ROTC guys, I applaud them.
You're on.
And if they go on and they serve our wonderful country, which always seems to have a time of need.
Yeah, and this is a tough, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was just going to
But
say
there's
real
always-
quickly, and this is a tough world environment for these guys to be going into.
But Jim, when wasn't
Yeah,
wasn't it?
but,
You know?
Your question has, I have to ask you a question now,
Okay.
okay? With the ROTC detachment that's here now, the Dauntless Battalion, how do you feel the rest of the university interacts with the ROTC here? Are they respected?
Absolutely.
Are they?
Absolutely.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I know
Good
one
question.
tradition they actually do now is for 9/11. They actually have ROTC cadets standing by the dome in silence all day, taking shifts, showing respect to the
I
country.
saw that on Facebook.
Yes.
Very good.
I would
Very
just
good.
like to say that you can be an ROTC student and graduate and do time in the service, but not make a career of it.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's wonderful leadership experience. And I think that that's the other thing that we got out of it, not just how to be a soldier, but how to be a leader in life. And, you know, some of us were more successful than others. Some of us made more money than others.
But we're not going to name names.
We're not going to name names, but that it was an invaluable experience for all of us, just to understand how to take orders and how to follow orders. First, you have to learn to follow orders before you can give
Absolutely.
them.
Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time and coming and talking with me and the rest of the community. We always enjoy having you guys come back to campus, so we really hope that you take this opportunity to, talk to the ROTC cadets and get to share each other's stories. And I do want to thank our viewers as well for tuning in and hearing these gentlemen talk about their experiences during the PMC. And we hope that you tune in next year when Voices of Freedom returns. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The PMC, Pennsylvania Military College, was established in 1821 to prepare young men for the entry of college. The PMC was the first school to receive federal arms for training, and the cadets became well known for their leadership, scholarship, and military service to their country. The Communications Department is honored to present Voices from Freedom, where alumni from the Pennsylvania Military College have the chance to reflect on some of their favorite memories during this pivotal point in their lifetime.